Our next guest on the Any Given Monday podcast is a runner who set up Shelter's running community, is a member of Team SJ who have taken on a number of races, including last year's Dublin Marathon. And he's also a psychotherapist and counsellor with thisisusTherapy.ie, published in a self-discovery journal that titled What Was, What Is, What Now, a 12-chapter journey to bring awareness to various areas in our lives, to bring growth and change within these areas, to live a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Marcus Cowzer, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. How are you getting on?
Thanks very much, lads. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
That's a great intro, Sean. You want to practice your reading a little bit more before you read his book. Anyway, that intro, what is it with you and butchering this? What's wrong with you?
Halfway through that, I was going to start again. I was like, you know what? I'll let it out. It looks smooth. So you're just going to abuse me, and people listening are going to go, that actually,
But
he said it all right. That sounds pretty solid. What's Eric talking about? That's going to come across so smooth in the post edit. It's going to be unbelievable.
Marcus, I'm
really
really
use that
sorry.
for the edits if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Marcus, you are very welcome to the Any Given Monday podcast. You come with a wealth of experience, knowledge, a good background as we move into what is Movember. Everyone sees a lot about Movember. We're going to be talking about men's mental health. It's good that we have an outlet like this. The stuff that you talk about in the books and stuff is helpful to us guys and gals who are out there, because it's not just for men, it's for everyone, really, mental health. But before we dive into all of that, this is a running podcast and you do a little bit of running. But before that, how did you get into sport, or what dragged you into the sporting route?
Well, I suppose I played football from an early age, from the age of maybe 6 or 7. I was playing with home farm schoolboy football, and I played right up, I suppose, into my 40s. I had a couple of years away in England, and that didn't work out through various things, and then I just continued playing at junior level and senior level in Ireland and right into the over 35s league. And then it just became that little bit difficult, 3 or 4 days after a match. It was becoming 5 or 6 days of injuries and soreness, and I suppose the head was telling me I was still 21, but the body wasn't, and the legs weren't getting to me for the tackles and the type of game that I played. So I stopped that. And I didn't have any aspirations to do any type of running at all. I never liked running, never enjoyed it, but give me a ball and I would run all day. Even when it comes to pre-season, I was always about the short and sharp stuff as opposed to the long distance. I was like, you never run for 3 kilometers on a pitch consecutively. It's always just short and sharp, And then I just fell in by chance. A guy asked me, because I sea-dipped down in the shelters in Portmarnock. So every Saturday, Sunday, we do a lot of cold water therapy. And there's a huge community down there. And someone asked me, would I do a beach to 5K for a charity event back in 2023, a 10-week block, just to get people up to 5K to run an event in the April. So we did that, and that was great. We stopped at the end of the 10 weeks. The run was in the April, and then there was nothing. It was just carry on, crack on, do your own thing. And then in the October, November, 2 ladies just asked me by chance, was I doing the beach to 5K again?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I hadn't planned it. Then more people kept asking me because they just thought it was a January, February thing to try and beat the Blues. And so we said we would. I said I'd put it out there. So I started putting on my social media and start getting a great response. A lot of messages, a lot of people asking. And I remember the first Saturday, the day we picked to start, it was a women's aid swim. It was a dip for women's aid. So the beach was packed. There was so many there, and I was there, and I was trying to differentiate who's here for me and who's here for the dip. And so eventually I walked away with about 22, 25 people were saying they were here. And I said, look, that's still good numbers. And we went with the week 1. But then obviously that afternoon, I got a lot of messages from people saying, sorry, we missed it. We were at the dip. We'll be there next week. And I was like, yeah, no problem. So there must have been about 50 or 60 there in the second week, it was just mind blowing.
Brilliant. Marcus, what's that feeling like when you realize you can't stop now? Do you know what I mean? That it's like a lot of people showed up here. Do you know, this was just an idea, and now everybody's relying on me to be here every week. It's a good pressure. It's good stress. It's you stress. It's positive. But What was it like to go, uh-oh, what have I done?
Well, initially I said it's only for another 10 weeks. That's all I said. It's only, and it's going to get me through January and February. It'll get me through the winter months. It'll get me out. And one of the sayings I kept saying was just keep showing up. Trust the process and keep showing up. And as long as you show up, I'll be here. I was going to dip anyway. I was going to have a swim anyway. So, if I can do
An
half an
extra
hour at the
30,
beach,
40,
yeah.
50 minutes. Yeah.
So word of mouth spread and people came, and some weeks it was 40, some there was 60. Like, there was massive numbers. And I was really blown away by it. So as the time went on, and we had our awards last January, and I went back in the group chat, right back to the very beginning when they were doing 2 minutes running and 2 minutes walking, and they were really struggling. Like week 2,
yeah.
they were like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get up to week 3. And it was great to have a look at that journey of how people have progressed and, smashed every goal that's been in front of them. And that's the difference, I suppose, when you have that belief. And I always have that belief, if people show up for themselves and are committed to something, stay consistent, the results will come.
Was that nerve-wracking for you to get when you see back in Germany? Myself and Eric, years and years ago, we did this couch to 5K for Maynooth University. Well, over 10 years. And we all met up on
Neither of
one.
us had ran 5K, by the way.
No, we all started at one end of the campus. Like, right, the best place to run is the other side, South Campus, North South Campus. People know it well from the student union, and it's around a little over a kilometre. It's like, right, we'll run there, we'll get our runs. There's a 1K loop at South Campus. We were so inexperienced in getting people to run that by the time they got to South Campus to start the event, they were goosed. Like, it was only 5-6 minutes to run down there, and then try and get them to run, walk, one rock. I'm like, Eric, like, they're college kids. Why aren't they all fit? Like, they should be grand. And just getting to build them into stuff like that. So when you started this and you were getting people to go, right, 2-minute run, 1-minute walk, and that kind of thing, like, because you're dealing with, before that, you're dealing with these athletes and, football and all the rest, and such a higher level of fitness. I mean, to go back to that, was there a bit of a nerve-wracking start going, how do I get these to 5K in 10 weeks' time?
So one of the main things that I put in at the start was, I know, and listening to the Pacers in your last episode, and I froze that bit where, like, I think it was 22 minutes in, where your mind will always tell you something different. And obviously that's the line of work that I'm in. So when you'll always have someone at different paces. So when we would set off for, say, 3 minutes or 2 minutes, you'd set off and I'd blow the whistle after the 2 minutes. One of the rules was, we always, in the walk back, we walk back to the back. So the slower person will always start off the next 2 minutes.
Right.
And we'll always go back you'll start always together, because what generally happens is when you run on and there's too many people in front of you, you're like, it's easy to say, oh, I'll just turn back now. They won't even notice me.
Yeah.
That would have been Joe.
I don't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but it sort of keeps everyone together in a group. And then we start off again for the 2 minutes and you blow the whistle, you go back. And it just keeps people together, because our slogan is, it's not a race, it's a community. The running was always secondary. It was always to bring people together and to make people feel part of something. And obviously the running is part of it. But I think when I saw the progress in people and there was no pressure, again, coming from a footballing background where I put all the pressure on myself and I put on this, I had to be the best, and everyone on my team had to be at the level that I was at. And, just because I was staying in on a Saturday night, I'd be fuming at players that didn't. And, I really wasn't a nice person, I don't think. I think my drive sort of put a lot of people off. But I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit, of what that drive was about. But I think with the pressure of just getting to 2 minutes is a huge thing. And if it's a 9-minute kilometre pace, or it's a 4-minute kilometre pace, you're still getting to do 2 minutes. You just bring it back. And as you said, finding your right pace to run for that 6 minutes would conserve your energy. And I was learning as we go along.
Marcus, how important was the group for each other? Because obviously you have a lot of people who are saying, I can't. And that's probably, or you're too fast, you're too good, I'm not a runner, I'm very slow, is how every Irish person introduces themselves before they give themselves a name. I'm not a runner, I'm really slow. Oh, by the way, I'm Eric. So how important was the group for finding that motivation to keep showing up, and then to help each other. At what point as a coach did you see the group start to take over encouragement and everything else, the community element you spoke about?
Well, I think it was the WhatsApp group as well. So I had a WhatsApp group and I just said, look, if you can put your run, I used to send them in run work because we have people coming to Portmarnock. We have Darren and his family from Selbridge every week. We have Derek and his family from Navan. We have Michelle coming from Bray. We have Stuart coming from Neilstown. Now, these are people that were attracted to the sea dipping. So they might have come once a month or once every 2 weeks to go to the beach. But all of a sudden they were coming up every week. They really bought into it. So when you set up a WhatsApp group and then people are putting in the run work, because we couldn't meet during the week. So on a Sunday, I'd say, look, repeat what we did on Saturday, do it twice. And then on Sunday, we'll step it up. And it was when they started putting their Stravas in or their heat maps in, and I just sat back and watched as everyone was like, well done, that's amazing. But it gave the other person motivation that was probably saying, I'm not going to do it this week. And they'd get up and then, it's always the coffee afterwards. The sea dip is a good, to get everyone into the water. It's a good way to bring people together, and then just have the crack afterwards. So there was a natural community there as it was. But I think when they started doing something for themselves and really saying, I can do this, it gave them a little bit more of a self-belief. And myself.
And then after the 10 weeks finishes, you do a 5K on the beach. Is that what happens then for that?
Yeah, so we did January and February was generally beautiful. The sun rises, around 8:00, 8:15. The sun rises. It was so beautiful, and it was crisp and cold, but it was never that bad, for the time of year. But when we hit the end of the 10 weeks, we said we'll do our 5K, 2.5 up, 2.5 back, and we'll finish at the shelters. And Storm Amy was a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Double that. It's just horrible. It was windy, it was raining, it was open. But we had huge numbers. I think we had over 40 people doing it that day, and just wanted to really get to that level and finish it and just sort of get that medal.
Yeah.
I suppose week 8 words started happening. People were saying, I'm really enjoying this. Are you going to finish this? Are you going to continue it on? And I hadn't planned to like the previous year, but I said, look, I will, but we don't stop at 5K, can we not aim towards something else? So the OGs, I like to call them, the first block had said, okay, we'll hang on, but we'll maybe try to get to 6K and then to 7K. And then all of a sudden we started a second block where there was another group starting from scratch. And then all of a sudden,
very good.
And we're on to block 7 now. Block 7 are doing their 5K this Saturday.
Brilliant.
It's amazing.
Marcus, at what point did you go from, right, we're doing 5Ks, and then I see on your Instagram, you're doing half marathons at Alicante, you're down in Rome doing half marathons, like with shelters and all the rest. When did you start to approach maybe 10, maybe 15? Did that come naturally? Did that come in the WhatsApp group, or was that you wanting to push them on?
Well, I'm one of these people, I wouldn't expect anyone to do something that I haven't done. Now, I've never ran more than 10K. I'll admit the 5K to me even was like, right, get me to that. But I said, if we're going to aim towards 10K, I might as well do a 10K. So I might have went out week 8 and done a 10K, and okay, that was tough. I know what's ahead of them.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine then said, the harbour, Hout to Dunleary is a walk that they do every Paddy's Day. I think it's a charity. And she said, well, we run it. And I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. Why don't we give it a go? So we ran it, stopped at 13K at East Wall. Worst thing we could have done. The legs were heavy, but we kept going and I ended up telling her to go on, right? And but I remember they had only done their 5K run and in that weather. I said, I'm really going to finish this for them, But I ended up going into People's Park, okay, by mistake. I didn't go along the coast, and it was Paddy's Day. I saw a high-vis jacket, and I said, these must be part of the walk or the run, so I'll aim towards them. But obviously, it was Paddy's Day, and out of nowhere, a load of kids start running towards me. About 25 kids start running towards me. So I'm running, gasping for air. It was like my Rocky moment, And I
Jumping
looked,
over park benches.
yeah. And I looked ahead and I saw this big leprechaun. The guy was dressed up as, it was leprechaun dash.
Marcus, at what point did you wake up?
Exactly. So when I got to the guys in the high vis, I said, "Is this to harbour?" And they said, "No, you have to go up the stair." And I had to go up these stairs. And but I remember sending them videos, and I was like, "Look, you are the guys that got me through this." But it was horrific. And I said, "How are we going to do that? You know, how are we going to get to that level?" And then I did Inishmore half marathon for the Matter Foundation, and that was my first one. So I said, "Okay, we have to aim towards a half marathon." When I came back from Inishmore, I booked Rome. I always wanted to see Rome, so I booked a half marathon for October. And the next week, in the group chat, about 15 people put in their flight details. We're coming to Rome. Then I went up to
Wow,
20.
Unreal.
Then I went up to 25, and we said, right, that's our goal. That was our aim, and that
Class.
was it. Maybe the March, April, May, I think it was, and we were aiming towards the October for the half marathon, and that's when the panic set in for everybody. A half marathon. Deadly.
wow. That is it is a big step up when we talk about those first 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off to a half marathon. It can seem daunting to a lot of people, but I've no doubt that these are the same people that thought they couldn't do a 5K. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So what happened then was we done the Fingal 10K. One of our members had never done more than 5K. She just never did. She would admit that she was quite slow. And I said, look, we'll be there at the finish line. You know, you take it on. So she done the 10K, and the railings and all were being taken off. But the guy was still in the cabin talking, and we saw her coming around the corner, and about 15 of us went behind her, and we brought her over the finish line.
Deadly. Very
So the
good.
guy was saying, "Oh, that's great camaraderie, and well done to this community spirit, and wow, this is fantastic." It was a great shot, it was a great picture, but that's what we do. We wait till the end and we finish. We wait till everyone's finished. But as they ran across, everyone, some two ladies pulled me and said, "Can we have a word? Who are you from?" And asked me what my story was, and I said, "Yeah, listen, this is the community. We're the shelters, and we've recently signed up to Athletics Ireland." And she said, "Have you entered the half marathon or full marathon?" And it was Jean and Joan from Dublin Marathon. And I said, "No, sure, they're all sold out." And she said, "Will you email us on Monday?" So I said, "Absolutely, yeah, of course." So I said, "We might have a chance for the half marathon, your hometown half marathon." I said to a few of them. So I put in a
100%.
poll, who would like to do the 10 miler half marathon. And I think I put in full marathon. I think I did, because a couple of them did click it. And right enough then, Ian from Fingal County Council and Active City said, "Look, we'd like to help you and support you, and you're doing great things." And he got in touch and said, "Will you give me your names and emails of people that want to do the half marathon and the full marathon?"
Whoa.
Wow.
Did that tempt you, Marcus? Did it tempt you?
So I said to myself, "Do you know what? I'm doing it because, again, I'm not going to expect them to do anything that I wouldn't do." So
Yeah.
I sent over, I think it was 15 names. I just said by chance. And we had Rome the week previous. We were only training for the half marathon. This was around the August time. So with that, we got we got a couple of guys texting me saying, "I think they made a mistake, Marcus. I'm after getting a full marathon ticket here in the post." You know? I went, "Whoops." So I said, "Look, why not? Let's smash it. Let's go and do it." You know. So 15 of us then had to up our training block to longer runs and to keep Dublin Marathon in mind. And I was lucky enough then to be asked to be part of Team SJ, which was just amazing for me. Dublin Marathon was probably up there at one of my greatest days. That was amazing for us because we used to leave the shelters at 8 in the morning, pick a route, and then we'd come back one by one or three by, they'd be depending on the groups, and some would take 4 hours to do a 34K run, and I think they were more in shock that they actually did the 34K because
Yeah.
7 months previous, 8 months previous, they were only getting up to 5K.
It's
Some
phenomenal.
turnaround.
How much was fear driven, as well as motivation to do a marathon? Because, like you said, you can't ask people to do something you haven't done yourself, but you hadn't done it, so you're lining up, you're lacing up with these And it's unknown. A marathon is unknown till you do your first. And you can say that now because you learn, and I'm sure you all learned a lot about yourself. But what was it like the couple of days before, the unknowns, the 34K, and then it's like, right, we're starting a marathon. What was that feeling like for all of you? Because as you said, within a year, we've gone from a 5K and now we're standing on the start line of Dublin.
So things happen. I suppose we were very lucky. The community was very lucky, but I personally have been very lucky that just by chance, this guy couldn't sleep one Saturday morning and decided to get out for a walk, a bit of fresh air, and he arrived down. It was another rainy morning, and I was doing my usual team talk at the start, and he jumped in and asked could he come for a run, and he loved it. And I got chatting to him afterwards, and it was Gary Seary, he's now the vice chairman, but Gary has over 70 ultra marathons under his belt, including the Antarctic Marathon, and like he's an absolute legend. So to have him on board and have him there to give advice and guidance is just, it's priceless. We've John Foreman we had a couple that could jumped in because they seen we were actually up in our distance and we weren't just the 5Kers anymore. Asked could they come on board, and they had a bit of running experience. David Dowling, a friend of mine as well, he used to run down at the beach and talk about it. So there's always been people there to help us, and that's what we're so grateful for, because the running communities, there's always somebody there to Tom Griffin was our physio, and he would give us voice notes to sort of tell the guys. Then Katrina McKiernan came on as a bit of a coach,
Very good.
through Active Cities as well. She came down and had a chat with us just to give us a little bit of running tips and stuff like that. So we're constantly learning. But yeah, the week leading up, because we done Rome as a taper.
Your first half marathon race was a taper. I love it.
And because we've got that race day energy, we were sort of saying we have to take our time. But Rome was full of cobblestones, and I think we were more nervous about going over because now we set ourselves Dublin. But so I was, the heat was taken off me a little bit. Well, not I say a little bit, but I was doing long runs in the park with Keelan and out with Team SJ. So I would double up sessions Saturday in the shelters and then Sunday in the park. And the team of 5 of us would work together in our training block. So they had done marathons before. They had other running experience. So they were sort of helping me. My biggest worry was I had really bad IT band problems, like really, really bad. The training didn't go well for me. I was panicking. I did Longwood and I think I cried for 20K. I was just like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to let so many people down. And because I was running at maybe a 5:50 pace, I was really pushing it because it was my first year and I was pushing. I was putting more strain on it. I eventually got it sorted and got physio. But then with the buggy, we were doing it at 6:30 pace and I could have ran all day. I was dancing, skipping, singing. It was a dream.
Marcus, for people who don't know, Team SJ. So you're running for the first time. Your first marathon, me and Eric had talked before in the podcast, like our first marathon, we ran beside each other, shouldn't have done it, paces kill each other. But your first marathon, you're running with Team SJ, you're running with a group. What is Team SJ and what did that involve?
Okay, so again, as I said, things seem to just happen for us, and I feel it's meant to be. So, people that you meet and the journey that you're on. We were running the Sheriff Street 5K one day, and I was running up the hill, and I could see Keelan pushing a buggy, and I was known Keelan from doing a half Ironman. I sort of followed her on Instagram, and now I just said, "Do you need a hand?" And she said, "Would you mind giving us a hand up the hill?" So we pushing up the hill, and our sister Sarah Jane is in the buggy, and we just clicked. We just had a laugh. Now they were ripping it out of me for the whole 3 or 4K. And I had a bit of a thick skin, so it was a bit of laugh. And then she just said to me, "Oh, I'll keep you in mind for Dublin." And she winked, and I just went, "That was amazing, and I'd love to." But then she was on to me and saying, "Look, I'm not taking it away from your first. If you want to do your first, go and do it." But I said, I had such a great time, and it was such a great experience, and that's her why, being able to do that.
Yeah.
And I said, to be even part of that and to be asked to be part of it was a huge honor for me. And she said, "I don't want to take the pressure, put the pressure on you." And part of me was saying, is the pressure taken off me because I'm now doing it with the buggy as opposed to time? But then with the IT band, the pressure was added on because maybe I'm going to hold the guys back. And there was so much. But for an experience like that, for your first marathon, I really I really couldn't have picked a better one.
What was the feeling like, Marcus, when you enter that unknown as you come around that last once you cross that 34K that most of you have done, you've been there, you know how much it hurt. You cross that, you're very much into an unknown. You're with the buggy, you're with others, you're all hurting a little bit. What was that feeling like for you as you progressed through the final stages? And then, of course, crossing that finish line in the company of such nice people.
Yeah, I think this year, you know, we're part of it, but from what I believe, and I know you are going a long time with the podcast, but the running community scene has seemed to have grown. It's like
Yeah,
really,
agree.
really multiplied. So we noticed a
Thank
lot
God,
more.
keeps us going.
That's what I'm
We only
saying.
had 4 this last year.
On the course, yeah, absolutely. On the course, you see them all, and people are screaming your name and supporting you. And I think they used to at the hype corners. They made sure don't let him on the buggy because I'd always go a little bit faster, you know. Um, but when we came down by Foster's Avenue and then onto UCD, and then a couple of our members, Helen, Aoife, and Susie, were just at RTE, and I was like, I could see them, and I went, I'm nearly there. Like, we're nearly there, and then when we hit the RDS, then it was just. It was better than any football stadium I've ever been in, because it's just people just either side of you, and they're calling and screaming and shouting. And I was lucky enough, obviously, last year was the first one, the slalom finish.
Yes, yeah, in and around, yeah.
It was magical. Now, Keelan was struggling at that stage. She'll admit, you know, she said, I can't even see, but we were holding her together and we were all together. And I think the adrenaline just took over. And she's a little rock star. You could see the pride on her face pushing her sister across that line and even getting the medal. And we were all in unison together. And that picture is one of my favourites of myself, Noel, and Martin, and Peter, and Keelan. And it's just hard to describe, you know, and then to see Sarah Jane getting her medal, and yeah, it's a special, special moment. The only problem is that you can't get back out and see other people coming in.
It's
Yeah.
such a long loop, big loop around, because I know some people doing it this year. I'd love to be like just at the finish line you can with so many races, but I can't imagine that feeling, because every time I've crossed it, it's been alone. And there's been a few that have been fairly fucking overwhelming getting across that. But then when you're doing that for that bigger reason, having those people with you and sharing that journey all the way through, I actually can't imagine what you're feeling. And for your first one, on top of all that, like our first one, I was a bit crossing, I think, but for many different reasons. But for that's such a special one, especially for your first one and in Dublin and everything else.
Yeah, and I think it did help me with my pressure. I suppose being the coach or the head of the shelters running community, we had a running group, we had a Dublin separate group, and sort of the book stopped with me, and I was like, everything I say, I'll have to, you know, they're going by my words. But maybe I was panicking a little bit, or needed a hand, or needed some support a little bit to be able to, and that was my outlet. The Team SJ group was my outlet, because Martin had run various marathons before, and Keelan and Noel. So there was a lot of support when it came to nutrition and rest, and even just checking in the middle of the night, you know, just how's everyone doing. And that sort of stuff is so important, I think, because the nerves do set in. Um, but I, I woke up that morning. We all woke up at 5 o'clock, and we were all texting, "Who's up and what are we doing?" And the nerves start setting in, and then we went in front the waves, and we met the other buggies. And I remember we were coming around. We got to the Phoenix Park, Chesterfield Avenue, and it was free. We start going past a couple of the walkers. I think we just go after wave one, and then you just hear, it's like hear the buffalo. You could actually hear you could hear the ground moving, and you start like wave two is coming at you.
Oh, man.
I felt that.
Yeah, you just like stand still. I mean, so that's where the teamwork comes in, where, you know, you've one on left and right, and one in the front and one at the back, just to protect the buggy, and even just to protect the other runners, that they don't try and overtake the person at the back and run straight into the buggy. So there is a little bit of manoeuvring, but we have it down to a T. But I think, yeah, it is special. It is special. I don't think I do Dublin without Team SJ.
Working with a team, going through that, and you talked about there the RDS feeling better than the football stadium. Any parallels to your football and stuff before that, or different kind of pressure, doing runs and being accountable for shelters, running club, and all that? Is there a parallel, or did you learn or lean back on your experiences from football into that? or is it completely different?
Yeah, no, there's a few similarities, but I think this time I'm just being more honest. I've limited knowledge. I'm not a running coach now. I've done courses, not since then, but I'm only going on what we're hearing and what works for us. And I'll always give 2 or 3 options. The difference with the football, I suppose, for years I put so much pressure on myself. My whole outlook on how I saw myself, self-esteem, self-worth was proven over 90 minutes. And if we didn't win, that would affect me with my friends, with my partners, with my family, with myself, how I would speak to myself. Because I felt I'd let my dad down and people down, and teammates. I was so much giving out to them because I was like, "Come on, you don't understand. We need to win this game." But I took the fun aspect out of it, and I really put so much added pressure onto it. Where with running, the person who gets sub 2 or the person who gets sub 5 is still getting the same medal. They still have to run the same distance. It's just the level at that where they're at. And I suppose in football now they have A level, B level, the different levels of sport, and you stay with that level. But I think you're finishing something that the top level is still finishing. Doesn't matter about time. So it takes that pressure off. And Davey, my friend Davey Downs always saying, if you're not smiling, you're doing something wrong. And I don't think I smiled a lot playing football. Obviously, when you score a goal, you win a match, but during the game, during the process. So I think being part of a team, or now that my training block the last few months, I've smiled every training session. Like really smiled, and race day, it's full of smiles. Watching people cross the finish line, the nerves at race line, it's smiling though. It's a good energy, and I think that's something that I won't change. When that pressure becomes on, trying to hit PBs, trying to, get better than something else, I think that's when it becomes that little bit too hard on me personally. So I think the communities, having a safe community like that is healthy. But sometimes if you're putting too much pressure on yourself to prove to others, you take the fun out of it.
Marcus, how important is Shelters Running Club to you and to your transition from, let's call it, the identity? I know I played it all through my childhood. I was going to be like you. Had big aspirations of what I was going to be as a footballer, and then it doesn't happen, and you have that reality. You played a lot longer than I did, but that transition from the identity as a footballer, that's what it was. That's what you eat, breathe, sleep, and then you go for a couple of dips. It ends up in a 5K. How important, in hindsight, looking back over 2 to 3 years, was that transition for your mental transition into not being a footballer and finding another outlet?
Well, from obviously from my line of work, I think the community aspect, I think Brian Penny speaks a lot about the opposite to addiction is connection. So I think when people are feeling lost, to connect to someone or something is massive. And I think if you can find the right community, because there's so many out there, if you can find the right people, um, it does help massively. Like, we've had so many people coming on their own. They've just rocked up to the beach. They've saw our social media, asked they come along, and they'll come on along for the first week, but they'll leave with so many friends or so many faces that they know the second week. But for me, I've learned an awful lot with my just being not so hard on myself. This is a part of me now, to be part of watching people create their goals or get that self-belief in themselves has given me self-belief. The friendships I've made, and the friendships and the relationships that we see growing each day is so big. For something that I said was just going to be a sea dip. Um, yeah, I spoke at a workshop a few weeks ago, and I admitted it for the first time in 30 years. When I was playing it, I was in England. They said I'd end up in a wheelchair if I kept at that level by the time I was 18. So they said they'd be back in touch with me, the club, in so I went back to school, but I was still a superstar in school. People were still saying, "Oh, I'm going to be this," and I won all the sports days. And I remember going to a county athletics, and there was a 1,500 meters, and I said, I'm going to do it. But I'd won everything in my school, but this one, I was coming in at fourth into the last lap, and my head just twigged that I can't afford to not be on the podium. I can't afford to be in the top three because that's who I am. And I faked an injury. I faked a hamstring pull, and I pulled out and I did not finish. And that was my last sort of experience with running. So to come back and to finish what we start was always a big thing for me. And I suppose that was maybe me driving that, because when I finished my first 5K or my first half marathon, the Dublin Marathon, every time I crossed the finish line, it's like the pressure was off me. It doesn't matter where I came or what my placing is. Yes, the times are great, and you know, because that will come naturally. I think your fitness. The girls don't even know how to use Strava or average pace, but when they're on it, you'll see PB, PR. You know, it's just coming naturally when there's no pressure. They're just getting fitter and they're getting better and they're learning how to run longer and faster. So that's without the pressure. And I think for me, life sometimes is like that. So life puts on so much pressure, or we put that on ourselves, that it makes us feel stuck, makes us feel, you know, tight and closed, and we feel trapped sometimes. That when you have that freedom to express, it's powerful.
And from your experience in your line of work then, what parallels can you draw from the running club and that release, you know, and what does it give people, you know, in when you're recommending people to, as you mentioned there, the connections are the real trip. By the way, I'm taking that phrase and sticking on a t-shirt and selling it. If anyone wants to buy it, €10. But in seriousness, the from your line of work mixed in with your hobby, what parallels can you draw from that, and what are you seeing in people who are getting involved with the community and getting involved with running in particular? Because the resistance to running is very little. If you have a pair of shoes and you can walk, you can possibly run. So what are you seeing in the benefit side of that?
When you're meeting like-minded people, you have to start small. So, you know, I think anyone that says they hate running are generally the people that run out the door for the first time and try and do a 5K at a pace that they used to sprint at and hate it. And that's their one and only. So you start small. So in life, you know, if you set yourself little goals, little steps, I always say celebrate the small wins, because they end up becoming massive wins at the end. But it's making those small ones and appreciating them. Kindness and compassion is two of the words I use quite a lot in my therapy when I'm speaking to someone. I think as men, we don't give ourselves kindness and compassion. As humans, maybe sometimes we tend to give it to everybody else. So give yourself a break, but appreciate what you achieved. And if that's a 10K or an 11K or 11.5, and celebrate that, you know, and if you have to do a 9K before and then go to 12K, it doesn't necessarily mean you're moving backwards, but just getting back up. And when people are coming back from an injury, and I know Barry was on, and it's difficult when you're not getting that. I got COVID a couple of weeks ago coming back from Porto, and every time I looked out the window, I was like, you think you're so funny running, don't you? All you hating on everyone, and
Yeah.
you know, with an injury. So again, just starting slow again and going, you know, getting back out there, because there's so many other people in the same boat as you. There's so many people that are probably struggling, that they're going to get to that level. And next of all, they're running beside you. And what are you doing today? I'm just doing 4 today. Yeah, I'll tip away with you. And conversations are made and they come back lighter.
Marcus, you talk about community and stuff there. Another thing you're doing, 12 hikes in 12 months, men's only hikes. You were a guest speaker last May, doing like for 200 men going for these hikes. How it's even hard for me to ask this question, because and Eric's the same, because even in the intro to the podcast, Eric was like, you know, we're talking about November and stuff, and he was like, men's health, and obviously women go through health as well. And as men, like you're talking about there, we always say like, oh yeah, but other people are suffering as well. It's not just me. Like, it's just, you know, we kind of put it off. Like, how tough is it talking about being the guest speaker, getting men to go to these kind of events and opening up, and the challenges and stuff that November brings? Can you talk a little bit about that to us?
Yeah, so I think, you know, it took me a long time. Like, I'm 50 now, but it took me a long time to find out who my authentic self was. I always had a mask on. I always had a front to put on, or I had to be someone else, you know.
Mm.
And I suppose lived experience, actually getting in and doing the work and doing work on myself, or going to therapy, having a better relationship with myself. Because I'd say in therapy, it's just about the client having a better relationship with themselves. Like, we can't choose the other people in our lives, but when we give ourselves a bit more kindness and compassion, we become a little bit softer. So I suppose getting up and speaking about life experiences and sharing my story, I suppose, is easy enough for me, because I've got comfortable with the pain, and I've got comfortable what I've gone through. And hopefully one little thing through a podcast or through my book or through a talk, someone might go, "Do you know what? That's after hitting a nerve there. I want to investigate that a little bit more." Or, "There goes my fear about going to therapy." Or maybe he'll be able
Mm.
to direct me into something. And, you know, people do reach out then, you know, because now they can feel it's not just about, like, I did my thesis on men's mental health, and the change over the last over 20 years ago. Men thought mental health was schizophrenic, bipolar, you know, people that rock in chairs. You know, they didn't think anxiety, grief, depression, you know, self-esteem was under that umbrella,
Mm.
and they just cracked on, and thinking, I'll just get on with it.
Is men's health getting worse or better? You know, you hear about like suicide rates, most of them are men, and that kind of thing. And you being right in the middle of all this, is and the fact that we know more about it, and there's a little bit more talk about, like 20 years ago, what's men's mental health? Just, you know, get on with it. You know, pull up your bootstraps, over phrases, and because more people are talking about it, is it getting better? Because I don't know about yourself. I know Eric and myself. We know so many people, not so many, but a lot of people, you know, in their 20s, 30s, stuff like that. That mental health got just too much for them. Are we making progress in it?
I'd like to say yes, but the numbers aren't backing that up.
Right.
I think more and more men are open to speaking about it now. Being around mentors or being in communities that are openly talking about their feelings and emotions, or maybe directing them, because sometimes when we're in the family, the generations, it's that I don't want to be the odd one out, or I can't speak about that. And I had that myself. You know, you don't know how to speak to the men in your family. So finding a mentor, finding someone that you can confide in, and just let you know that you're normal. Everything's okay for having these thoughts. But when you're on your own and you feel you're the only person, and again, this is just from personal, but it's lonely. It's so lonely, and you really do feel lost, and you seclude yourself, and you don't want to be around people. And, you know, I thrived in dressing rooms. I love dressing rooms, but then dressing rooms ended up being a bit too much for me, and I had to veer away. And then you go into isolation. COVID didn't help, and, you know, the gaming situation where you're having conversations with people online, but you're not great socially. So there's an add-on for so much that I think running and sports clubs, boxing and running and football can bring in to help. The thing about Movember is it's not just about mental health, but people always say mental health when they say health. You know, it's about your prostate, it's about getting lumps checked, or, you know, which we don't do anyway. I think we get that
Yeah.
fear. We're fear-based, men are. But then I have this argument that, why is it only Movember? What's
Mm.
wrong with December and February and March? And we have these set months for these where it gets highlighted, but does it go missing as the year goes on? It should be a conversation that should be had on the daily.
Marcus, how difficult is that first conversation to say, I need to talk to somebody? I'm not okay. Because we've mentioned it before, I think, in a podcast with a couple of guests, to stand up in front of a room of people or even your loved ones and say, I'm not okay, is probably one of the most difficult things to do. You feel like you've divulged state secrets and everybody's going to die. You know, like it that weight, that feeling for, and that's how I would describe it with certain things. Is it huge weight on your shoulders? And you talk about pressure in sport, but now we're talking about the pressure in your own life and in your own head and in your own person. How difficult is that first conversation to move towards a bit of help?
Well, I relate everything back to, so even when I was injured, if I was injured and I'd say I'm feeling a bit of a niggle, the lads would go, give over, you're okay. And you'd play through an injury and you could do yourself more damage.
It's
Yeah.
like that hamstring from the sports day again, Marcus, huh?
Here we go again. But now I'm like, I'm not, even now, I suppose, with running, if I feel a twinge, I'm listening to my body, I'm saying, okay, I know what's a niggle and I know what needs to be checked out. But when people say, would you give over? Come on, get out on that run, you could do yourself more damage. When you hear that conversation in someone's house going, I'm feeling a bit down, how would you, come on, have an L pint, will sort it. Or, come on, we'll go for a pint, or we'll go to the match, or we'll stick on the telly. And that was just the easy way out. That doesn't work anymore because, blocking out whatever pain a drink may help, a drug may help, because you're trying to put that pain away, but then the pain is still there. The sadness is still there. Whether you're hungover or to come down, or you've even just to wake up the next day, it's back. And it is lonely because you do probably think, myself, I thought I was the only one that felt like this. I had a lovely partner, had a great house, had a good job. I had a cheek to be sad, the cheek of me. So it did take a lot. It took maybe 3 to 6 months of me looking at a number and saying, will I or won't I? Will I? Who do I find? Who's the right person? And again, by chance, I just booked in with someone, and then I cancelled, and then where I was working, the same name came in and booked in. Like, it was a lady's name, but it was the same name as the therapist. And I went, well, maybe that's a sign. And yeah, I went, and I wouldn't be a therapist if it wasn't for my therapist, because she ended up saying to me that I had a good eye and a good ear, and the way I was working things out, did I ever think about being a therapist. So stuff happens just like that. But initially, it's difficult. It's difficult. And what I've learned is you have to meet people in their shoes. Because, if I have a broken arm and, you have a broken arm, whose pain is more? I can still work because it's a broken arm, but you mightn't be able to work, which means you're housebound, which means you're not socializing, which means you're not interacting. So mentally, it could be actually a lot worse than you. It's just still the broken arm. So being able to meet someone and go, I feel your pain. I understand it. It must be tough.
Is this a full circle moment that goes back to the start of this podcast? We talked about you jumping into the sea, swimming, and all that. Because as someone who hates the water, I can't understand why anyone would jump into the sea any time of year, let alone November, December, January, and all the rest leading into all that. Is that one of the is that one of the reasons you jumped in? You talked about cold water therapy and stuff at the start of this podcast. Is that a reason?
Do you know what? Again, it's only just personal, and probably people will shoot me for this because, those people that have ice baths out on their back, and, fair play to them, because I wouldn't do it on my own. I did it for the community aspect. I liked the shelters. I liked the energy that it brought. Yes, the sea dipping had to be included. And so you're arguing, you're battling in bed, you're sort of saying, oh, I'm not going out today. And then you get out of bed and you're in the car and you're like, oh, I'm not going to get out. The wind is blowing. And then you're in the car and you get out of the car and you go, oh, the tide is miles out. So you're battling constantly.
Yeah.
But when you get in and you immerse yourself for 3 or 4 minutes and get your breathing right and you're just calm, when you come out, it's as if you'd said, right, I've beaten my mind. I've won the day. Bring on anything. Bring on anything, because I won. And I think sometimes we're the ones that tell ourselves that we can't do something. We're the ones that tell ourselves that we're not good enough. Yes, there's a belief from somewhere, but effectively we're the ones that can try and change it and say, do you know what? You're not going to win today.
I think that's a huge benefit of it, because when people talk about cold water therapy, some like, oh, well, the science says this, it's not that great for your body, that's just a placebo effect and all the rest. But what you just said there was, that's a challenge of going out there. You're in that warm car, the heater's on and everything, well, it is in my case, and you're looking out and going, maybe it is a bit choppy, it's not that safe today, I'm going to drive off and do something else, or there's too many people watching, or whatever reason comes in your head at the time, and off you go. But when you face that battle and you do it, like it's the same not going for people listening that don't do that, like myself, going for that run. You don't want to go where it's a bit wet out, but when you do it mentally, you feel so much better for it.
I think you've often said it on the podcast, you know, you never feel bad after the run that you decided to do. You'll always feel worse at the one that you didn't do. And
what is next for Shelters Running Club now that is it what is next? What's next goals?
Well, the next goal is obviously we're going to have 30 people doing Dublin Marathon now on Sunday week, and that it's mind blowing. It's nearly triple of what we did last year. It's 35, I think, doing it. So getting the lads geared up for that and getting their nerves settled, and you know, even the ones that have done it, you know, they know what's ahead of them. I just think it's amazing. Then we have the Dundalk half in February. So one of our newest members, just put into the group that he bought a ticket for he's only up to about 9k, and he put in the Dundalk half marathon ticket, and he said, any advice or tips, throw them my way. It was a Saturday night. I think 28 people signed up that night. I said, we don't give advice and tips, but we go on numbers and we help you. So they're already looking forward to the track. They're already looking forward to the next goal after the marathon, working together towards that. There's a few of us doing Donna-D. Again,
brilliant.
That's my limit now. I've said it to them. I'll only go as far as that, because anyone that wants to do triathlons, which they've done Tri-a-Thai, and a few have signed up to Ironman for next year. And I'm like, no way. I said, I can take it as far as 50k from running. Then it's on to Gary.
You say that now, Marcus. You say that now.
No, we'll pick a trip away. We'll pick a half marathon to get away for the weekend, and maybe hopefully just get into this ballot now for next year for Dublin, and hopefully get a few numbers for that. The thing about it is, it's the beauty of it is there's always something. But if you just show up every week, you know, every week seems to have someone smashing something. If it's a time, if it's a distance, if it's, as I said, this Saturday our Block 7 are doing their first, and you know, they're going to be starting their journey towards the 10k now. So yeah, just keep growing and keep spreading good vibes, I suppose, and being around. And you are more than welcome to drop down every Saturday anytime you want.
Yeah, Sean, get down there and swim.
Eric, nice and warm
in June, July, August, in the summer.
He's back in February, just around Donna-D time. So when you're talking to him down there, you rope him into down that beach. Maybe next August, if it's a really, really warm wet, if we're in the middle of a heat wave. Next August, I've got a chance of making that sea down there.
More chance of me jumping in the lake at Donna-D than running 50k. Anyway, that's a fact.
Thanks, you're really helping here,
Marcus. It does. Now, look, we will when we're back. I'll bring Sean down. He swims like a brick. It's going to be hilarious. But Marcus, when we people have listened, they're curious. How do people get in touch? How do they find Shelters? How do they get involved with such a fantastic club?
So we're on Instagram. The Shelters Running Community is on Instagram. I'm Marco161, so a lot of it is linked to my page. But the Shelters is generally, the girls look after that. They do a great job, and they look after anybody that's interested when the next blocks are starting. But then just pop down on a Saturday morning, and obviously the next couple of weeks we're going to be doing shakeouts and finishing up the 5k, and then Dublin Marathon, and then starting then we'll be all on the beach from now till November to December, because the girls have affirmed that we're not doing any more long runs apart from the ones that are doing Donna-D. They just want to be on the beach doing 2 or 3k runs and on the beach having their coffee, getting back to basics, and we restart again in January.
Do you do a Christmas swim?
Oh, Christmas Day, Stephen's Day, but yeah. The Bank Holiday Monday after the marathon is normally a great day as well. We get for a dip, because a few of the other running communities come down with the medals, and we have the tops on and the hats, and then we get,
very good. Maybe I'll make it out for a Christmas swim just to prove Sean wrong anyway. But good. Marcus, it has been an absolute pleasure. It is fantastic to see you're getting so many people involved in running, and in such a positive way with no pressure, and to just enjoy it, and the community aspects. Fantastic. We wish you the very best. We hope more people come down and join, and those blocks go bigger than you can even handle, and then maybe you do feel a little bit of pressure. But
I do feel more coaches now. I need to get more coaches. But listen, the community are great, and the board is great, and we have a few coaches there, Teresa and Gary and Paul, and they do we all bunch in and help out one another, you know, because I do like the long running now. So I've done a D to be training for. I can't be doing those 2Ks on the beach.
But it's been, we wish it, and those who have been brave to show up for those first times and those swims, well done. And we hope many more continue to join you. It's been fantastic. We will join you at some point for a swim, and we will get to meet
Eric,
some fantastic people. Sean, you're coming. It's all right. Get in the van. So that's it for this week's episode of the
Thank you
Any
so
Given
much.
Run
An
Day
absolute pleasure,
podcast.
lads.
no, Eric, you're not winding up this podcast. No, that's my gimmick. You're not
Come
stealing
on.
that from me along with everything else. Before we wrap it up, I do have one more question. Marcus, this isustherapy.ie. That is where you get your book, and you book therapy sessions and stuff through that as well, Marcus, or what's the deal?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a booking system on the website, and I've recently introduced the gift of therapy, where I suppose people can buy a gift voucher and gift to someone that may feel will benefit from therapy, as opposed to telling someone you have to go or you should ring, which I think can be quite daunting. So I think giving a voucher to say, look, I'm after booking you on, or it's paid for, it allows them to come for one session and just see that it's not as scary as they may have imagined, you know, and even might be able to feel a little bit lighter afterwards. So I think the gift of therapy was something that I came up with, and there's a tab to buy that on the website as well.
And with that said, Eric, my deal here, not you. That is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. So myself, Marcus, and Eric, take care. I'm
Thank you.
so scared of messing that up.